None of them knew was that Princess Adesi was somewhere very close by, listening to the conversation. Anger boiled inside her. There was no way she would stand by and watch some wretched chambermaid steal her brother's heart. Not when her friend Olana, who deserved the position, was available and ready to be taken. To make matters worse, she could not believe her father supported such nonsense. First of all, she had to find out who this maiden was and then eliminate her for good. Once upon a time, in the heart of the eastern lands of Africa, there was a village so beautiful and peaceful. They called it Umueze, the children of kings, nestled between green hills and wide rivers. Umueze was a place where the earth swelled with harvest and the people lived in peace. But high above them all in the grand palace ruled a mighty king named Igwe Buzuo, the one whose wealth knew no end. Igwe Buzuo was a man blessed beyond measure. His treasure houses sparkled with gold and silver, gifts from traders and neighboring kings who came to pay him homage. His fields stretched as far as the eyes could see, heavy with ripe yams, tall stalks of corn, and fat bundles of cassava. His barns groaned under the weight of plenty, and his cattle and goats filled the pastures like stars filled the night. In the royal household, there was no such thing as lack. Whatever could be desired was already there in abundance. Yet, for all his riches and power, to the surprise of all, Igwe Buzuo kept just one wife, Queen Nwaneka, whom he cherished so much. Their love was true, and from that love came two children, their pride and joy. The first was Prince Afana, a tall, strong young man with kind eyes and a heart as gentle as the evening breeze. Afana was well loved in Umueze, for he treated even the poorest farmer with respect and never let pride touch his soul. His younger sister, Princess Adesi, was a different story entirely. Adesi was born with beauty that made people gasp. Her skin was as smooth as fresh palm oil, her eyes sharp and shining like the morning star. 2 years younger than Afana, Adesi had grown up knowing she was the jewel of the kingdom, and she let everyone feel it. Where Afana was humble, Adesi was proud. Where he was gentle, she was fierce and full of pride. She walked through the village like a queen in her own right, her head held so high it seemed she was greeting the sky. Servants trailed behind her, fanning her with palm fronds, while some others walked ahead, scattering fresh petals of flowers before her so that her royal feet would never touch bare earth. And heaven help anyone who dared to cross her path. If a man or a woman or a maiden so much as stepped in her way, Adesi would snap her fingers and her guards would rush forward like wild dogs. The unlucky villager would be beaten on the spot, not lightly but thoroughly, as a warning to others. The young men of Umueze, they feared her more than they admired her beauty. One time, a brave boy named Obinna dared to approach her with a flower, hoping to confess his feelings. But Adesi, her face twisted in scorn, ordered that he be given 100 strokes of the cane for the crime of daring to dream above his station. After that, no youth in Umueze, no matter how bold, ever tried it again. Adesi, in her eyes, stood far above them all. She was untouchable, unmatchable, and proud of it. Of course, her arrogance did not go unnoticed. In the great halls of the palace, King Buzuo and Queen Waneka would often sigh deeply, their hearts heavy with worry. They scolded her in private, pleaded with her to change her ways, to be kind, and remember that even royalty must show mercy. But Adesi only smiled sweetly before them and returned to her old ways once their backs were turned. The truth was, the king and the queen loved their only daughter too much to punish her harshly. She is our Ada, our only girl, they would say. What can we do? After all, she's still young. She will change. But change never came. The only person in the entire village whom Princess Adesi treated like a true human being was Olana, her childhood companion and closest friend. If Adesi was the sun that burned brightly over Umueze, then Olana was the moon that quietly followed, shining with a softer light. Their friendship had been forged when they were little girls, playing in the royal gardens, while their fathers, Igwe Buzuo and Chief Ozo, discussed matters of power. Chief Ozo was a powerful man. In fact, after the king himself, he was the most powerful and influential figure in Umueze, a wealthy farmer whose lands stretched farther than the eyes could see. Chief also owned vast fields where strong men worked from dawn till dusk, tilling the soil and gathering harvests that fed half the village. His barns were almost as grand as the king's, and his word carried weight in every corner of Umueze. Olana, his only daughter, was born into privilege and plenty. She knew no hunger, no hardship, and no denial of desires. It was only natural that she and Adesi, both daughters of power, would become the best of friends. From their early days, they were inseparable, two noble girls who shared not just laughter and games, but secrets. Though they walked the same golden path, their natures were different. Olana was gentle, her beauty calm, while Adesi was fierce like a wild flame. But their friendship was strong, bound by years of loyalty. And among Olana's deepest secrets was a love she dared not confess to anyone else. A heavy, sweet crush on Prince Afana, the king's son, and Adesi's elder brother. Her heart raced every time Afana passed by, his kind eyes looking ahead, unaware of the storm he stirred in Olana's heart. She had loved him for as long as she could remember, and only Adesi knew. One warm evening, they lounged on soft mats within the shade of a tall udara tree, with servants fanning them and bringing bowls of sweet palm wine. Olana confessed to Adesi, "Adesi, I wish your brother would look at me the way I look at him." Adesi, ever confident and full of pride, had laughed, tossing her head so that her long braids danced around her face. "Olana, why do you worry? You are the daughter of Chief Ozo, the only maiden in this whole village who is worthy enough to stand beside Prince Afana. Who else dares to dream of such a match? Don't worry, when the time comes, I will speak to my parents. Afana will marry you. I will make sure of it. After all, it's only right." Her words had filled Olana with hope, her heart swelling. She believed Adesi, for who could doubt the will of the princess? She commanded even the guards with a flick of her fingers. Meanwhile, somewhere on the quiet side of Umueze, far from the grand palace and its glittering walls, lived a young maiden named Chisom. Life had not been too kind to her from the very start. She had lost both her parents when she was still a small child, barely old enough to understand what death meant. It was her mother's elder sister, Auntie Nene, who took her in, a woman who the whole village whispered about behind closed doors. Auntie Nene was a woman who had known her own share of sorrow. She had never been married and had no child. No one had ever called her mother. The people of Umueze said it was because the gods had cursed her. Some claimed she had a spirit husband in the world beyond, and that no mortal man dared to cross her path. For years, the whispers chased her wherever she went. At first, they pierced her heart, but with time the pain dulled and she carried on, bearing her loneliness. When her beloved younger sister, Chisom's mother, had died in a terrible sickness that had swept through their village, leaving death in its wake, Auntie Nene knew her life had only one purpose left: to raise the orphaned child as her own. She brought little Chisom back to Umueze, and from that day, every drop of love in her heart was poured into the girl. But love alone could not fill empty stomachs. They had little to their name, only a tiny patch of land behind their small mud hut where they grew vegetables and a few yams. Chisom, being a girl, inherited nothing from her father's family, and Auntie Nene, childless and husbandless, had no dowry or wealth to lean on. To make ends meet, Nene toiled on other people's farms, earning small coins and food in return. When Chisom grew older and her legs became strong, she joined her aunts in the fields. But then the season turned cruelly against them. Chisom blossomed into a very beautiful young woman, and Auntie Nene fell ill. A strange sickness that no amount of herbs or prayers could chase away. Day by day, her strength faded, and no healer could find the right cure. Chisom knew that time had come for her to care for her aunt, just like the woman had cared for her all these years. From dawn, when the cock's crow echoed through the village, till dusk, when the sun sank behind the hills, Chisom worked twice as hard, harder than any maiden her age. Her hands became rough, her palms cracked and sore from the hoe. Her whole body ached, but her spirit never broke. She worked hard so that she could buy food for her aunt and pay for the bitter herbs that kept the sickness at bay. Soon, many of the villagers noticed her. Farmers would say, "If you want your field cleared well and fast, call Chisom." Her name became known for her tireless labor. And when the young men started circling around to woo her, Chisom turned them all away, even the boldest among them, who offered to marry her and take her away from her hard life, received the same answer. She simply said, "I cannot leave my auntie, not now, not ever, while she still needs me." Many called her foolish. Some of the village maidens who spent their days plaiting hair and dreaming of handsome suitors laughed behind her back. They whispered, saying she would end up just like her cursed auntie Nene, alone, abandoned and forgotten. One day at the village stream, Chisom had an argument with one of the maidens, and their whispers turned into open insult. The maiden, swollen with pride, looked Chisom straight in the eye and spat. "Instead of you to find one man to save you from this wretched life, you are busy running from one farm to another. You will soon become like that your cursed auntie, alone and lonely." That day, something in Chisom snapped. Her rage, buried for so long beneath her quiet endurance, rose like a storm. She dropped her water pot and attacked the girl. The fight was fierce. Chisom's strength, hardened by years in the fields, was no match for the soft hands of a gossiping maiden. She beat the girl so badly that the whole village burst with the tale. From that day, no one dared to mock her to her face again. The whispers grew silent when she passed, though they still stirred behind closed doors. But life, with all its twists, was not done with Chisom. For one day, on a morning that began like any other, with the sun rising gently over Umueze, something happened that would change the course of Chisom's life forever. That day, as the golden sun began its slow journey down the sky, Chisom left the farm earlier than usual. A strange uneasiness had settled in her chest like a heavy stone. Her hands could no longer focus on the work before her, and her heart kept whispering that something might have happened. Without waiting to finish the task, she packed up and rushed home, her bare feet kicking up clouds of dust as she ran through the narrow path of Umueze. Her mind raced faster than her feet. What if something had happened to Auntie Nene? But when she pushed open the wooden door of their small hut, she found Auntie Nene sitting up on her mat, looking better than she had in days. Relief flooded Chisom like cool water on a hot day. She smiled, even laughed a little at her own fear. Still, the evening meal had to be prepared. And when she reached for the firewood pile, she found it empty. Not even a single stick was left. Sighing, she picked up her small knife and a rope and set out again, this time towards the nearby bush to gather firewood before light faded completely. The bush was quiet as she worked, her hands moving quickly and skillfully as she chopped and gathered the dry sticks. She had just finished tying her bundle with the rope when a loud, sharp shout pierced the air. It echoed through the trees and made her heart jump. Her first thought was to run, but then the shout came again, desperate and pained. She froze, her heart pounding like a drum. Should I run or hide? What if I run straight into danger? Quickly, she crouched behind a thick wall of bushes, her bundle of wood pressed beside her. The world around her fell into a strange silence. Only the birds continued to chirp, as if unaware of the danger that had just screamed through the air. Chisom waited and waited. The forest remained still. Slowly, she lifted her head, her eyes scanning left and right. It seemed the danger had passed. She took a cautious step from her hiding place, and that was when she saw him. A man limping heavily. He was staggering towards her. His clothes were fine and sweat poured from his face. Chisom's first instinct was to run and run again, but then her eyes locked on his face, twisted in pain, and something inside her stopped her feet. As he drew closer, she could see clearly now. He was young and handsome, and from the fine embroidery on his clothes, it was obvious he was someone from a wealthy home. But more importantly, the look in his eyes screamed for help. Chisom dropped her bundle and ran towards him. "What happened? Do you need help?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Snake! Snake!" the man gasped, gripping his ankle in agony. His whole body shook as he repeated the word like a warning. Chisom's heart skipped. A snake bite. Suddenly everything made sense. The desperate cry, the limping, the pain. If I don't help him now, he will die here in this bush, she thought. Her training, taught by Auntie Nene, kicked in like second nature. She quickly helped him sit under a large tree, letting him lean against the trunk. Without wasting time, she untied her bundle and grabbed the rope. She knelt down and tied it tightly just above where the snake bite mark swelled on his ankle. This would seal the poison from traveling through his blood. "I will be back. Stay awake," she told him firmly. She dashed into the bush, searching with sharp eyes for the organi leaves, the bitter but powerful herb known to fight venom. Thankfully, the gods were kind. She found a thick patch nearby, tore off handfuls, crushed them between her palms until the green juice dripped, and then she hurried back. "Chew, swallow," she instructed as she placed the mashed leaves into his trembling hands. He obeyed, grimacing at the taste, but soon his breath grew steadier. The wild look of pain in his eyes began to soften. He blinked up at her, and for the first time, he truly saw her. Even through his pain, the sight of her struck him. A young, beautiful woman with kind, determined eyes, her face glowing in the fading golden light filtering through the trees. She was unlike any maiden he had ever seen. "Thank you," he murmured weakly. "If you had not been here, I don't know what would have happened to me." Chisom gave a small warm smile. "The gods be thanked, not me," she said softly. Her voice, sweet and calm like a cool river, wrapped around his heart. He found himself wanting to hear more. "What is your name?" he asked, his voice hoarse but curious. Chisom blushed. "My name is Chisom," she replied, rising quickly. "But I must go now. My aunt will be worried if I stayed any longer." The young man tried to get up, but the world spun around him and he groaned. "It's the leaves," Chisom explained, seeing his struggle. "They make you dizzy, but it means they are working. You'll be fine soon." Before she could say more, he had slumped back against the tree, unconscious. Chisom hurriedly retied her bundle of firewood, her heart racing. She had no time to waste. She gave one last look at the young man still breathing, but out cold, and turned away, heading home with quick steps. All the while, her mind played back the scene over and over. Surely the gods wanted me there today. That's why I left uneasy. That's why I left work early, she thought to herself. She could not help but smile. The man was unmistakably handsome, and he had looked at her in a way that made her heart jump. But she quickly killed the thought. She was not looking for a man, and even if she were, this one was way above her status. Little did she know that the man she had just saved was no ordinary traveler. Neither was he just a wealthy man. He was none other than Prince Afana, heir to the throne of Umweze. The prince had come into the bush to inspect a large piece of land his father, the king, had recently purchased. But fate had another plan for him that day. When the prince awoke much later, the sky was darkening and the pain in his leg had faded. He sat up slowly, piecing together the fragments of memory, the snake, the pain, and her. He looked around wildly, hoping to see her face again. But just as he feared, she was gone, vanished like a dream. He managed to stand and limp his way back home to the palace. But every step he took, every breath he drew, carried only one thought: the beautiful maiden with the beautiful voice named Chisom. Later that night, under the soft silver light of the moon, Chisom set their evening meal on the old raffia mat spread before their small hut. The air was cool and the night insects sang their songs in the bushes. Above them, the moon shone so brightly, it painted the earth in a soft glow, almost like daylight, but gentler. As Chisom placed the bowl of yam porridge between them, Auntie Nene looked at her closely. The old woman's sharp eyes missed nothing. She noticed how Chisom's face seemed to glow tonight, how her eyes sparkled even brighter than the stars above them. "My daughter," Auntie Nene said, her voice soft but curious. "What is making you so excited tonight? You've been smiling to yourself since you came back." Chisom chuckled, unable to hide her joy. She was never one to keep things from her Auntie Nene. "You won't believe what happened today," she began. She told her everything, how she had felt uneasy while working and left early thinking something terrible had happened at home. She described how she had rushed back only to find her aunt well and safe. But then, when she went into the bush for firewood, the cry of the help, she spoke of the young man bitten by a snake and how she remembered everything her aunt had taught her. "And Auntie," Chisom added, her eyes shining with wonder, "I knew then that it was not by chance. The gods wanted me there today. They made me leave work so that I could save him." Auntie Nene listened quietly, her face softening as she watched her niece speak with such passion. When Chisom finished, Auntie Nene reached out and took her hand, squeezing it gently. "You make me so proud, Chisom," she said. "You are truly a daughter of honor, wise, brave, beautiful both inside and out. The gods do nothing without a reason, my child. Everything they plan has meaning, even when we do not understand it at first." Chisom smiled shyly, looking down at her joined hands. "But Chisom," Auntie Nene continued, "you must learn to live your own life too. You spend too much time worrying about me, watching over me like a mother hen. It is time for you to think about yourself." Chisom quickly shook her head. "But I am living my life, Auntie." Auntie Nene gave a soft, knowing laugh. "No, my child. You are living mostly for me and not for yourself." Chisom lifted her eyes, her face full of stubborn love. "But you are all I have in this world. You raised me, cared for me all my life. Now it is time and my turn to care for you. That's what I want." Auntie Nene's eyes glistened in the moonlight. She smiled. "You, my daughter, brought light into my life when the world had turned dark. Raising you was never a burden. If the gods gave me the chance, I would do it again and again, without a second thought. But listen to me, Chisom. I want you to find your own happiness. I want you to live, to love, to smile. Even if one day I am not here, even if you wake up one morning and I am gone, promise me you will let the gods guide you and not let your life stop because of me." Chisom swallowed hard, her throat tight with emotion. She nodded slowly, though deep inside, she couldn't imagine a world without Auntie Nene. That night, they sat together long after the food was gone, talking and laughing under the watchful eyes of the moon. Chisom's heart felt light. Her aunt seemed stronger, even cheerful, as if some new wind of life had entered her. For the first time in a long while, Chisom allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, the gods had heard her prayers at last. But when morning came, it carried a cruel surprise. As the first rays of the sun crept into their little hut, Chisom stirred and rose to check on her aunt. As she always did, she called softly, "Auntie, it's morning." But Auntie Nene did not move. She stepped closer and called again. "Auntie, wake up. The sun is already up. I need to leave." Still no answer. A cold shiver crawled up Chisom's spine. Her hands trembled as she reached out and touched her aunt's arm. It was still, too still, and far too cold. The truth hit her like a storm, knocking air from her lungs. Her knees gave way, and she fell beside her aunt, her chest heaving. "Auntie Nene, no, no, please wake up," she whispered, shaking the lifeless body gently, then harder. "Please, please, I'm not ready. I still need you. Please don't go." But Auntie Nene had already begun her journey to the land of the ancestors, leaving behind the world of the living and her beloved Chisom. The bright morning that had promised so much now felt like a cruel joke. Chisom's world had gone dark. She stumbled out of the hut, her voice breaking the quiet morning as she screamed for help. "Somebody help me! Please, Auntie Nene, oh, somebody help! People help!" Her cries echoed through the compound, reaching every ear near and far. Neighbors came running, some still tying their wrappers, others wiping sleep from their eyes. In a moment, a small crowd had gathered around the little hut. Faces pressed close, whispers spread like wildfire. Even those who had never cared for Auntie Nene, those same people who had gossiped and spoken ill of her behind closed doors, now stood among the crowd, their faces painted with mock sorrow and loud wails. Grief had a way of drawing even the most insincere hearts to the scene. The women gathered around Chisom, pulling her close, their arms wrapped around her shaking shoulders. They patted her back and muttered soft words meant to soothe, though none could touch the deep emptiness inside her. "Take heart, my daughter," one woman murmured. "She has gone to rest," another added, but their voices sounded distant in Chisom's ears. Meanwhile, the men wasted no time. Death in Umueze was met with swift burial. A group of them grabbed shovels and hoes, made their way to the small piece of land behind their hut. By midday, the fresh grave was covered, the earth still soft and red. The last handfuls of dust had been thrown in, the final prayers muttered. As the sun climbed higher, the villagers slowly began to drift away, returning to their farms, their markets, and their daily troubles. By sundown, the compound was silent again. Chisom sat alone on the raffia mat, staring blankly at the spot where her world had crumbled. When her parents had died long ago, she had been just a child, too young to truly understand that death was final, that it meant never coming back. Back then, she had cried because everyone else was crying. But now she understood too well. The pain was sharp, deep. It wrapped around her chest like iron chains, making it hard to breathe. She wanted to cry again, to scream until the sky cracked open. But her tears had dried up. Her throat was raw, her body weak, and her soul felt hollow, as though Auntie Nene had carried a piece of her away into the earth. As darkness fell and the moon rose again, Chisom still sat there, unmoving, alone, empty. But while grief swallowed Chisom in her little corner of Umweze. Far away in the grand palace, at the heart of the kingdom, Prince Afana was fighting his own storm. He was restless and uneasy. He paced the marble floors in his bedchamber. Days had passed since the maiden saved his life in the forest. Yet, her face was all he could see, even when he closed his eyes. Her soft voice echoed in his ears. Her name, Chisom, whispered through his dreams like the evening breeze. It angered him that none of his servants, none of his guards had managed to find her. He had sent his most trusted head of guard with clear instructions. Find her, bring her to me no matter how long it takes. But the guard had returned empty-handed. His head bowed. My prince, he said carefully, there are more than 100 maidens named Chisom in Umweze, and Umweze is vast, 10 villages wide, stretching very far. Finding her without raising questions, without causing a stir, is like searching for a needle in a pile of hay. Prince Afana clenched his fists, his jaw tight with frustration. He wanted to scream, to tear through every village until he found her. But deep inside, he knew the guards spoke the truth. It was nearly impossible. Yet, no matter how hard he tried, he could not rest. Day and night, she haunted his thoughts. She had saved his life, but it was more than that. There was something about her, something that pulled at his soul in a way he couldn't explain. His absent-mindedness did not go unnoticed. The king, his father, watched him closely for days before finally calling him into his chamber. The king, old and wise, saw right through his son's troubled heart. My son, the king began, your mind is far away. I see it in your eyes. Tell me, what is troubling you so? As if Afana had been waiting for someone to ask, he poured out his heart. He told the king about the maiden in the bush, about how she had saved him from death, about her kindness, and how every moment since then he had thought of nothing else. Yet, he had no idea where to find her. When he finished, there was a heavy silence between father and son. Then, slowly, the king smiled to himself. He nodded as if understanding something beyond his son's words. The matters of the heart, the king said, are delicate and powerful, my son. But listen well. The gods do nothing by accident. If this maiden is meant to be yours, if the threads of your fates are truly tied together, then trust the gods. They will bring her across your path again. And when they do, do not let her slip away a second time. Prince Afana's heart pounded at his father's words. A flicker of hope lit inside him. For days, Chisom lay in her little hut, a shadow of herself. She neither ate nor drank. Her body was weak, her spirit broken. The neighbors had long gone back to their busy lives, and no one bothered to check on her anymore. The once lively compound had become a silent graveyard. Her heart ached so much that she sometimes wished it would stop beating altogether. Every corner of the hut reminded her of Auntie Nene. Her soft laughter, her gentle voice, the way she would hum old songs while stirring the evening soup. Now all that was left was silence and emptiness and memories. Then, one night, Chisom had a dream. Auntie Nene was standing under the moonlight, just in front of the hut. She was dressed in the same white wrapper she used to wear on market days, but the woman's face was sad. "My child," Auntie Nene said, her voice echoing softly, "this is not what I wanted for you. Did you forget your promise to me? You said you would live. You said you would love, be happy. I never raised you to bury your own life because of me. Get up, Chisom. Live. Be strong. The gods have greater plans for you." Chisom's heart pounded as she tried to reach out, but her hands touched only air. She woke up with a start, her body drenched in sweat, her chest rising and falling fast. For a moment, she sat in the dark, confused and shaking, until she realized it had been a dream. But something inside her had shifted. The dream felt too real, too heavy to ignore. It was as if Auntie Nene had truly come from the spirit world to remind her of her promise. From that moment, Chisom wiped her tears and made a decision. She would not waste away in grief. She would get up, face life and honor her aunt's memory by living fully. But staying in that house, that she could not do. Everything in there, down to the smallest wooden spoon, carried memories that threatened to pull her back into sorrow. She had always wanted to serve in the king's palace. She had heard stories from other maidens in the village. The palace was always looking for hard-working maids, and the pay was good. Food was plenty, and the maids were well taken care of. If she worked there for some time, she could save enough money to build a new life, maybe even start a little trade of her own someday. Now that Auntie Nene was gone, there was nothing holding her back. So, before dawn the next morning, Chisom packed her few belongings. She tied them in a clothes bundle, stepped outside and locked the small hut that had been her home all her life. She whispered a quiet farewell to the only world she had known. Determined, Chisom began the long journey towards the palace. By the time the sun began to sink into the horizon, Chisom found herself standing at the massive gates of the royal palace. The walls were tall and grand, made of red clay, but polished till they shone. Her heart pounded. This was the place where kings lived, where queens gave orders, where princes and princesses walked in fine silks. Summoning all her courage, she stepped forward. As if the gods had truly opened the way for her, everything moved swiftly from there. The palace steward, an elderly woman named Mama Ugo, met her at the gate. She looked Chisom up and down after hearing why she had come, and her tired face broke into a smile. "Ah, you came at the right time, my child," Mama Ugo said. "We just lost one of our chambermaids. She got married last week. We've been needing someone to fill the space. Thank the gods you're here." Before long, Chisom was taken inside past the grand courtyards where peacocks strutted and fountains bubbled. The other maids gathered to see the newcomer, their faces friendly and welcoming. They helped her settle into the maiden's quarters, a long hall with soft mats and enough room for everyone. Later that evening, Mama Ugo called her aside. "You have been assigned to your duty, Chisom. You are to begin tomorrow morning. Your job is simple. You will be the prince's chambermaid. Keep his chambers clean. Make sure his beddings are fresh, that water is always ready for his bath on time, and that his meals are served early. do this well and you will be favored here. Chisom nodded quickly, hiding the small smile that crept to her lips. After all the hard work she had known back in her village, fetching heavy firewood, pounding yam until her arms ached, farming under the hot sun, this sounded like child's play. Cleaning rooms, fetching water in the palace, where water flowed from the well, serving food that she did not even have to cook. It was nothing compared to the life she was used to. She felt relief for the first time in weeks. Maybe this was the fresh start she needed. She had no idea that her new duty would soon change her life forever. She had no idea that the prince whose chambers she was to clean was none other than the very man she had saved in the forest. And she had no idea that fate was already weaving their paths closer, tighter, pulling her into a love story far beyond anything she could have imagined, and trouble that could cost her her life. The cock had just crowed when Chisom got up from her mat the next morning. Her heart was beating fast. She wanted to do well on her first day and show everyone that she was indeed hardworking. She tied her wrapper tight, picked up a clean pot and filled it with fresh water from the palace well, and carried the pot carefully to the prince's bedchambers. When she reached the big door, she pushed it open gently and stepped inside. But then Chisom stopped. Her eyes grew wide. There he was, the young man from the forest, the one she had saved. His face was unmistakable, but now he was standing tall, dressed like a prince. It was Prince Afana. Her heart skipped a beat again. The prince's eyes also grew wide. He could not believe what he was seeing. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Afana rubbed his eyes, thinking maybe he was dreaming. But no, it was really her, his Chisom. Chisom, he said, still surprised. Hearing her name, Chisom quickly bowed her head. Good morning, my prince. I did not know you were the crown prince of Umueze. Afana stepped closer. Would this have made a difference if you knew? Chisom swallowed. Yes, my prince. I would have greeted you properly, my prince. The prince gave a small laugh. That day, I didn't need greetings. I needed help. And you helped me, even though you didn't know who I was. Thank you again, Chisom. She bowed lower. Let the gods be praised, my prince. I only did what I felt was right. Afana felt joy rising through his heart. He had searched everywhere for her, and now here she was. He took a deep breath. Now tell me, how are you here? Why are you in the palace? Chisom raised her head a little. I am the new maiden assigned to care for you, my prince. It is now my duty to clean your room and make sure you are well served. The prince's heart beat faster. The gods had brought her back to him. He did not want to make her feel strange, so he smiled softly and said, Very well, Chisom. Go on with your work. Chisom curtsied and quickly went about her task. She could feel his eyes watching her, and her hands shook a little. When she finished, she bowed again and left. But Prince Afana couldn't stop thinking about her. He sat on his bed, deep in thought. He had found her, yet he was now faced with a new problem. She was his chambermaid, a mere servant. By midday, he couldn't bear it anymore. He went to his father, the king. They sat in the quiet garden. "What troubles you again?" the king asked. "Father, she's here." "Who is here?" the king asked. "The girl I told you about, Chisom. She is right here in the palace and now my chambermaid. I feel like the gods brought her back, but I don't know what to do. She's just a servant now." The king smiled. "My son, the ways of the gods are not the ways of man. My son, when you lose something and it comes back to you, then it is meant to be yours. The gods have placed her in your path again, and this is no accident. It is now up to you to do something about it." Afana thought about his father's words. Yes, this was indeed a sign. Now, he had to find a way to tell Chisom how he felt, or perhaps show her, and he hoped she would feel the same. What none of them knew was that Princess Adesi was somewhere very close by, listening to the conversation. Anger boiled inside her. There was no way she would stand by and watch some wretched chambermaid steal her brother's heart, not when her friend Olana, who deserved the position, was available and ready to be taken. To make matters worse, she could not believe her father supported such nonsense. First of all, she had to find out who this maiden was and then eliminate her for good. Hey lovers, thank you for listening to this story. If you are new here, welcome to our community. I hope you enjoyed listening to this story as much as I enjoyed creating it. But Chisom's journey is just about to begin. If you'd like to know what later becomes of her and Prince Afana, then you would want to stick around for part 2, which I will be bringing to you sooner than you can imagine. Now, if you have not done so already, please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the next part. And to support the growth of our community, give this video a big thumbs up. If you know someone who would enjoy a story like this, do not hesitate to share. Don't forget to leave a comment down below. Remember, like, share, drop a comment and subscribe. I'll take my leave now, but I hope to see you in my